A large study in the prestigious journal Science found that people mind wander 47% of their waking hours. And that's a lot of time. That's when you're thinking about something other than what you're doing. So whether you're washing the dishes or you're studying, you're thinking about what you're going to do later or what you said yesterday, right? So that seems to be not just correlated with unhappiness, but a cause of unhappiness, perhaps the cause of unhappiness. And so really, mind wandering is something we want to be able to adjust at our own will. You know, you want to be able to slow it down and focus when you need to. So meditation is boot camp for your focus.
Hello and welcome to the Exam Study Expert podcast. That was today's guest, Anne Swanson, just now, explaining some of the power of what we'll be talking about today, namely meditation. I believe meditation is a really important habit for any scholar. After we've taken care of basic hygiene factors for healthy body and mind, like eating well, staying hydrated, getting sufficient sleep, and some form of exercise, the primary habit I recommend for any scholar wanting to support optimal functioning of their brain as well as body is meditation. The reason for this is really the multiple evidence-based benefits to regular meditation practice, many of which are extremely relevant benefits to scholars of all kinds. There are a whole set of benefits for our wellness, including things like the ability to manage stress, cope with anxiety and high pressure, better emotional regulation. And so that means we're better able to handle the stresses and strains of exams, deadlines, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, frustration, and all the other ups and downs of the academic journey. But more than that, there are also some really strong productivity benefits, including being better able to focus on the task at hand, and hence get more done because you spend less time being distracted or procrastinating or mind wandering, as our guest today, Anne, was talking about in the introduction. I find that the science, for what it's worth, matches my own personal experience very closely. And on the days that I do my little 10-minute meditation on my Headspace app, simply put, I get more done in the day. I waste less time, my work sessions are clearer, more focused, I procrastinate less, and the day as a whole just flows better. And at the end of the day, I've got more done and I'm more satisfied by that as well. I also think that beyond the work side of things, I also show up as a nicer, kinder, more patient version of myself, which is something that's incredibly important to me as well. To help us explore meditation, and in particular how to apply it to our very full lives as scholars, my guest today is Anne Swanson. She is the author of a book called Meditation for the Real World, which has been a big success, published by Dorling Kindersley in recent months. I was instantly impressed by Anne's work when I came across it for two big reasons. First, she takes a really science-based approach, which is something we always love here on the podcast. Her work is always tightly rooted in the science, and she actually collaborated closely with the research team at Harvard Medical School, who've done a lot of the research on the benefits of meditation, and they contributed to the book as well. But beyond just that kind of rooting in the science, I really loved how Anne approached the idea of kind of how you put this stuff into practice even when you're super busy. That was something that was really original, I felt, and something that was really kind of insightful. And you know, in particular, you'll come across lots of examples of this in today's episode. Those little ideas she has about how to find those moments to take a little bit of mindfulness, even when you would think you just don't have time, you know, to give that day a lift, to help you settle nerves, to help you get into a productive day of study, you know, things you can do on the way into an exam, or responding to kind of particular challenges in your academic journey. You know, really, really nice little ideas of how you can have these little moments throughout your day, no matter how full your day is, that just help you get that much more grounded, more calmer, more productive. So whether you're new to the idea of meditation and perhaps hopefully inspired today to take your first steps, or whether you're already practicing at least somewhat regularly and perhaps looking for some clever ideas to go a little bit further, there are so many useful ideas you'll be able to take from today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. Let's meet Anne and dive right into today's conversation.
Hello, my name is Anne Swanson, and I am a lifelong learner and scholar myself. I have written 2 books now, Science of Yoga and Meditation for the Real World. And I have used a lot of these techniques to get me through challenging classes and studies and tests myself. So I'm excited to share today.
Really excited to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to this. So thank you ever so much for coming on. I wondered if maybe we could start for the uninitiated or perhaps for benefits of people that might think they know, but maybe we've got, a little bit not quite got the right idea. What even is meditation? What do we mean by it?
Yeah, so a lot of people think it's clearing your mind. And honestly, that definition is just setting yourself up for failure because that's impossible. We as humans are natural mind wanderers. Actually, that's one of our evolutionary advantages in many ways. But it's also simultaneously a disadvantage. A large study in the prestigious journal Science found that people mind wander 47% of their waking hours. And that's a lot of time. That's when you're thinking about something other than what you're doing. So whether you're washing the dishes or you're studying, you're thinking about what you're going to do later or what you said yesterday, right? So that seems to be not just correlated with unhappiness, but a cause of unhappiness, perhaps the cause of unhappiness. And so really, mind wandering is something we want to be able to adjust at our own will. You want to be able to slow it down and focus when you need to. So meditation is boot camp for your focus. You're not going to be perfectly focused on whatever the teacher tells you to focus on, your breath, your body. Your mind is going to wander, right? That's human nature. But we keep bringing it back. So we're learning the skill to focus. So if you feel like I've tried meditation before, I'm not good at that because my mind's all over the place, actually, it's more reason to meditate. And when your mind wanders, that's actually a good thing because it's this opportunity to come back to focus. So meditation is that process of redirecting back to focus. So I think that's the biggest misconception. People think that if you're not focusing on whatever the anchor point that the teacher or the recording gives you, then you're not meditating, but actually you are.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And I love how you mentioned that study. And I've taken a look at your book, your very, very good book, and that really struck me. I've highlighted it there. I liked the quote from it. The ability to think about what is not happening, the mind wandering, in other words, is a cognitive achievement that comes at an emotional cost. A lot of unhappiness associated with the mind wandering, projecting yourself forward or backwards in time, etc. So I wonder if you might sort of expand a little bit on some of the benefits of sort of meditation practice. A couple of them are suggested by what we've been talking about already. But what does the research tell us about some of the big benefits we can expect or hope to achieve once we start to get into meditation? And I know there's a lot, so pick some of your favorites, perhaps.
Yeah, as I just said, it seems to be the cause of unhappiness. So one benefit would be happiness and fulfillment. That's not even just a bonus. That's a great benefit. But I think many of us come to the practice for focus. And it is that boot camp for your focus. It is something that's going to help you learn to learn things better. It's literally a skill, a meta skill that helps you learn to learn better. So it helps improve your ability to think about thinking. That's metacognition. Or your awareness of being aware. That's meta awareness. And when you build these skills, research on studying and learning shows that that is going to help you learn everything better. So it's a skill that pervades in everything you do. If you are able to take that, whether 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you practice meditation for, it's going to help you be able to get into that flow state, because meditation is a type of flow state. When you're like really in the zone, you're present. When we get into that flow state through meditation, you're building the skill to get into the flow state in whatever else you do, in studying, in taking the test, in doing things that bring you joy so that you can have that good rest time to get back to your studies, right? We want to also be present with our children and with are activities that are fun, not distracted about the thing we have to study for later. So I think that's a really big skill that many of us are looking for. And then neurologically, it's changing your brain. And we've known for decades that it changes the gray matter density of your brain in critical areas like the prefrontal cortex, having to do with focus and emotional regulation and planning and cognition, but also the hippocampus having to do with memory, both short and long-term memory. These areas build up with meditation. And also what we find in more modern neuroscience research, actually paired with a Harvard neuroscientist, Dr. Sarah Lazar, for this book, Meditation for the Real World. And she's like, yeah, that's kind of old news about how it changes the brain. What we're really interested in neuroscience right now is the brain network activity. So I've already alluded to it, actually. There's this brain network called the default mode network. That is the mind-wandering network, or Yale researchers call it the me networks of the brain. They're all focused on me. What am I going to do later? How did this person perceive me and what I said? And was it stupid? And it's all about me. So we go into that default mode network 47% of the waking hours, but meditation teaches us to go into the central executive network. This is the network of activity that has to do with like being large and in charge, focusing, choosing what you're doing. And so we go into that for moments and with time for longer periods of time in meditation. So we're working with the brain network activity when we meditate. And that's really key, is changing what is your mode that you're in most of the time. You don't have to be in the default mode network. It's called that because many of us are, but many of us are mindless.
I think this piece about helping your focus and helping increase your ability to concentrate, to be productive, to kind of work on the right things, to kind of maybe step back out of the moment a little bit and kind of take a more sort of strategic approach to your day rather than getting too caught up in the weeds. Like, all of these things can help, I think, get much more out of each day of work, of studying as a result of kind of meditation practice. I mean, I think one point that I've heard you mention before is about the kind of some of the hesitations that people might have to meditating and think, well, I'm super busy, I don't have time.
Yeah.
And I suppose the point here would be, well, you gain back so much more time than the practice actually takes.
It expands your time. When you're present, time changes. You get more out of the time. So it definitely helps you manage your time better. And people think that you have to do it for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or some long practice seated on the floor with some incense. No, you can do a 1-minute meditation before you go in for an exam, or a 3-minute meditation before you start a study session to really help you get into flow state faster. You can practice 10 minutes a day is what I do a morning, in addition to these little mini meditations scattered. So 10 minutes a day can make a profound difference. And actually, a lot of the research that shows these brain changes that I've spoken of, it is in just 10 minutes a day that you're doing that. So in as little as 8 weeks, we begin to see these profound differences. And it's not only differences in your brain. I mean, meditation affects every single system of your body. So it's going to help you get sick less often and fight off invaders better. It's going to help with your cardiovascular health, which is really key, keeping your blood pressure down, helping you regulate your nervous system. So there's really all pervasive benefits of meditation.
For sure. There's really no kind of minimum effective dose that, I mean, even like a minute a day can help.
A minute a day. And I have scattered throughout the book those 1-minute meditations that you can do in critical moments. And actually, it seems that if we place them in a key moment, then it could be even more beneficial than taking out a big chunk of your day. So if you place it in a moment where you're feeling really stressed, before you yell at your kids when you pick them up from something, or before you get overwhelmed by something, before you go into an interview or a Zoom call, and it's very important that you're present, you can take a 1-minute meditation right then and there. And that's going to help have immediate effects that you'll see, and then you'll be more likely to do it. It's really quite simple. I remember when I took anatomy and physiology, which is a class that involves a lot of memorization, and the tests
Sure.
are pretty intense. So I'd be in the hallway waiting to take the exam, and everybody else would be cramming flashcards, tell me this, show me that, and opening their books, really stressed. And I'd have a relaxing song on, close my eyes, take a few slow, deep breaths, and I would just feel my body relaxing. This is what I think helped me perform better in those tests. I actually did really well, and I wouldn't say I'm the type of person that's great at memorization. I never have been. So the fact that I did so well, I think is a testament to these practices. Just, in that chaos, can you find calm amidst the chaos?
I think that's great advice. I mean, there's always the temptation, use every possible last minute to cram in that extra little bit. But, realistically, the amount you'll learn in a final 5-10 minutes compared to the months, years that have gone leading up to that point is negligible. Whereas the benefit of walking into that exam with that calm, that focus, that ability to maybe, because you're in a slightly better state, perhaps spot things in questions, spot insights that you might not have otherwise picked up on, or maybe avoid rushing into traps that you would have otherwise fallen for. The impact of all that, I think, is so much more important than negligible impact of like 5 extra minutes of cramming and learning,
which will stress you out.
Which will also stress you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's really nice advice. Well, kind of in the exam hall itself, I suppose once you get into exam mode, I'm sort of almost thinking if there are sort of applications of a kind of a little meditative moment if you run into trouble in an exam. So you hit a question and you are kind of a bit daunted by it or fazed by it, and you think, oh my gosh, I haven't looked at this properly. I'm a bit stuck on this. If you've got any thoughts on kind of how you might react to that moment kind of mindfully in order to kind of help you move forward rather than panicking.
That's a great question, because you don't necessarily have a minute even in that time to do a 1-minute meditation. So I would ground my feet down. A lot of times we're moving our foot really fast, or we're in a uneven posture. I would place my feet down under my knees, ground them down, press into the floor, get a little taller, and take a deep breath. So a 1-breath meditation. You could close your eyes if that helps you, but just taking a moment, look away from the screen or the paper, close the eyes, just take a moment and take a deep, full breath. Get that fresh oxygen to your brain and pause, allow your shoulders to relax and sit a little taller. I think that's going to help you get a lot more clarity. So that's what I would do in that moment. I remember you're bringing out stories that I've never told, actually, because I remember taking my SATs and the person in front of me was fiddling with their hair constantly, just moving their hair around. And I'm sure they didn't do well. I feel like they were like very anxious, and their anxious energy was rubbing off on me. And I wish I had these skills back then. Yeah. Number one, to not be that person, tapping your foot crazily and fiddling with your hair, like really anxious. But number two, to not catch that energy. I caught her anxiety. Anxiety is contagious, just like calm is contagious. So cultivating that calm amidst the anxiety, creating a barrier so you're not catching the energy of the other people around you, I think is really critical too. And I wish I had that skill then of taking a deep breath and focusing in.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice example as well. I mean, we were talking earlier about some of the benefits of meditation, and we talked about focus and being more productive. You mentioned some of the physical health benefits too. We've also touched on kind of some of the kind of well-being, mental health benefits. When you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling nervous, and kind of how meditation can help with that. I wonder if maybe we could just expand a little bit on what the research tells us about meditation and mental well-being.
That is probably the area we have the most research on. Actually, it is the area is mental well-being as well as cognition, the combination of those, because when you are less anxious, you're able to focus better. So anxiety and depression are definitely helped through meditation, as well as sleep, which we know is very much tied to our mental health. When we're really anxious, it's hard to sleep. When you wake up in the middle of the night, or when you're having a hard time falling asleep initially. And that's critical for us to perform our best, is to improve our sleep. So those are some key areas. One warning I have, though, and actually some people listening might say, well, I'm a very anxious person and I've tried meditating and I felt more anxious. Well, I felt that too. And I dove into the research because I was like, this isn't right. Like, I'm using this technique my teacher gave me, and it's to focus on my breath and my body when I'm in this anxious situation, and it's making it worse. I mean, it was to the point was I get this overwhelmed feeling when I'm at the doctor's office. It was to the point where I was using the techniques and they were making me pass out faster. Like, they were making my outcomes way worse. And so I dove into the research, and apparently if you have acute anxiety, like test anxiety, you're really overwhelmed in those panic sort of level of anxiety attacks, then focusing on internal stimuli like your body sensations or your breath can make it worse. So for people that deal with that level of test anxiety, I wouldn't say, notice your breath. Just notice the next few deep breaths. Feel the breath moving in and out. Because what happens is you notice your breath's getting faster and it's betraying you and it's not what you want. And it just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Instead, what you can do is notice external stimuli. So that would be something like I said before, place your feet on the ground, feel the ground, feel the seat under you, place your hands on the seat, feel the texture of it, feel the air on your skin, feel the outside environment, notice what you see around you, make sure it's safe, emphasize its safety. I'm in a safe room. It's okay. Because your body thinks that you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, right? But really, you're just taking a test. I'm safe. So notice the safety in your room. So look on the outside of you. That's going to be more beneficial than feeling all the sensations, the heart pounding inside of you. At least for me, that's been true. And when I made that change, and when I go to the doctor's office, that's where I get those anxiety attacks. When I go to the doctor's office, instead, I look around and I notice the people there. I notice what I hear, the sounds. I maybe talk to them or ask them questions. I'm noticing what I hear and see, not noticing my breath and my body sensations. So I wanted to emphasize that because a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm bad at meditating because it made me more anxious. You weren't bad at meditating. You're just doing the wrong technique for that situation. And that's why I wrote this book, Meditation for the Real World, because there's not a one size fits all. There's all these real world situations that you might need to adapt the technique for. I would do a very different meditation to fall asleep than to energize, to focus before you start studying, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So when it comes to sort of putting this into action, we've had a couple of really nice examples of where you might kind of find little mindful moments, either before an exam, or we had the example, in an exam itself. I guess if you're kind of looking to establish a kind of a more, you were talking about the benefit of that sort of 10 minutes a day, and a lot of the kind of research talks about, uses that as a kind of a typical thing, and what happens after 8 weeks of that. So, if we're trying to get into that kind of habit of just doing a little bit each day in the morning, what are some of the considerations for people trying to establish that kind of core habit at the start of the day? What do people find hard about it? What are some of the ways we can overcome that and start to get that habit going?
Yeah. So if you know the research on developing habits, the best way to develop a new habit is to habit stack, to place it next to a very well-established habit you already have. So for example, if you shower in the morning, this is my habit I stacked it with. I shower in the morning. So after my shower, I sit down and meditate for 10 minutes. And that is a really great thing because I can sit down, I put lotion on my body. It's kind of like I'm sitting there with the window nearby, the sunlight coming into my eyes, helping me wake up, and I pull up an audio meditation. if you can stack it next to something you already do, whether it's before, after, or during. So another example is you have coffee every morning. You could meditate before coffee. While the coffee's brewing, you can smell it, you can sit next to it and do your 5 or 10-minute meditation. Then afterwards, you have your coffee. An example of during might be I use a red light therapy machine. So sitting in front of the red light therapy machine, that's when you can do your meditation rather than scrolling. So maybe you have a commute, and actually the cover of the book, Meditation for the Real World, is a young woman sitting on a bus or train, and she's on her commute, and everybody's slouched over their phones and computers in another world, and she's the only one that's present. She's got those headphones on. Maybe she's listening to a song or an audio meditation, and she's using that commute time to meditate. Her eyes are open. You don't have to have your eyes closed to meditate. You don't have to be sitting on the floor. You can sit in a chair. So during your commute, of course not if you're driving, but, integrating it into before, during, or after. So I would invite your listeners, think for a moment, when could you integrate a meditation? Whether it be a 1, 5, or 10-minute meditation, what activity are you going to pair it with? What activity that you already have a strong habit of doing could you pair it with?
Idea of stacking it with something else. Yeah, I try and that's ultimately kind of what's worked for me as well. Trying to integrate it into my established morning routines, and before sitting down to work for the day, there's meditate, and then there's kind of writing your to-do list for the day.
That's a good one. I do that too. I write my list and kind of get it all out. And then I sit tall and do a 1-minute meditation, because it helps me contemplate the list. Not that I'm thinking about it, but like soak it in. Like afterwards, when I come out of the meditation, I may have a new insight of a new priority. So sometimes it can give you that clarity that when you come back to your work, you're like, wait a second, I don't actually need to do that. Or this is more my priority. So the list is a really good one too.
One of the things I often talk to kind of my listeners, my students about is what to do on breaks. So you've got a day of studying and you're working hard for 45 minutes, an hour, and then you want to take 5-10 minutes and have a break. Now, in theory, the idea of having a little bit of a meditative moment in that break sounds really good. And on paper, that seems obvious. But personally, I've always found it quite hard to actually do that, because I've been working quite hard for an hour, and I suppose there's part of me that feels like kind of meditate. It's kind of, I don't know, it maybe sort of feels like hard work, or maybe like I don't know. But your brain feels lazy about it, and it's already been working quite hard, and it wants to do something lazy. And do you have any thoughts or suggestions on kind of whether meditation is a good thing to do as part of a study break, or how you might approach that?
Really good question. I love walking meditation. There's a whole section in the book on walking meditation. I like to get outside during my breaks. And sometimes I just go to the backyard and pace. I'll even enhance it if the weather is nice and do it barefoot. So you get grounding, what researchers call earthing. And it sounds woo-woo, but it's actually evidence-backed that when you place your feet or your body on the earth, it helps with anxiety, depression, measurably lowers inflammation. So I will pace in my backyard and do that barefoot and do a walking meditation. So walking meditation is basically like you're not just scrolling or mind wandering, although that happens in meditation. Instead, you have a focal point. So some examples may be that I really enjoy and that are in the book is you feel your feet on the ground. You feel each step. Just notice each step on the ground. And hear all the birds and the sounds. So you take in your senses, feeling the sensations of the ground, hearing the birds, noticing what you see, notice what you smell and taste. So take in your 5 senses as you walk. It's as simple as that. Another one that I really love is you walk and you do this thought experiment. And it is imagine you are the happiest person on earth. Just imagine. It's amazing what happens. Because what would the happiest person on earth be doing? Would they be worrying about what they're going to get on the test, or, do they have enough time to study? No, they wouldn't. They would be listening to the birds. It just automatically puts you in there. And it's kind of a fun, creative way to do that, is imagine you're the happiest person on earth. It changes everything. It feels like a weight has taken off of your shoulders as you walk and do that. So those are two ways I like to do walking meditation, and it could be just 5 minutes. It's also very good, obviously, to have that physical exercise to get the blood flowing. And so that's kind of a double benefit of a walking meditation.
Really nice. Well, we have some beautiful examples of how to kind of find these moments through the day and kind of integrate it into your real world life, which I know is kind of a big theme in what you write about. I just wondered if you had any kind of final thoughts or suggestions for listeners that we haven't mentioned so far that you think might be particularly helpful to mention.
Yeah, if you feel like you've tried meditation and you weren't good at it, or you think, oh, I couldn't be good at that, or it sounds like it'd be really hard for me, actually, that's more reason to meditate and more reason to find the technique that works for you, because it's not a one size fits all. Maybe the walking meditation is your thing. Maybe a meditation that involves lying down is more your thing, that guides you through visualization of a safe, happy place. There's so many techniques. And that's why in Meditation for the Real World, I go through, I think, 73 different techniques for different situations. And you can try them. A lot of them, you can try them as you read, the 1 minute meditations. Just sit there, and as you read, you can meditate and experiment with it. So think of it as an experimentation. So if you feel like you're bad at it, is actually more reason to meditate. It's a skill you learn, not something you're born with. It's like reading, right? We learn to read, and then it opens up a whole new world of possibilities for us. When we learn to be present, it does the same. It's going to help you, as I said, build those meta skills, learn to learn everything better. So I think it's a critical skill, and it doesn't have to have these big barriers of long time commitment or perfection of I'm clearing my mind. That's not it. So I urge your listeners to give it a try, and you can check out the book at meditationfortherealworld.com. And I have a guided 10 minutes a day, less than 10 minutes a day of meditations for 5 days. And they're different techniques to help you figure out what works for you and the science behind them. I even integrate music and sounds that are engineered to optimize your brain waves to help you. So head to meditationfortherealworld.com, check out the book and that challenge.
And I definitely encourage that. I've really, really enjoyed the book myself. Like it's excellent. It's really, really good. The blend of the research and the practical suggestions, very insightful, really, really interesting, beautifully written, beautifully presented, highly recommended. So definitely check that out, and we'll put the link in the show notes to make it easy for people to head over. Thank you so much once again, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Anne, for such a fantastic conversation. And as I say, the link for her book is in the show notes. I noted when I was looking this up just now, it's rated 4.9 out of 5 stars, 4.9 stars from over 100 reviews on Amazon, which is not something you see every day. So well worth checking out if you're interested in the topic. And if you're inspired after today's episode to give meditation a go, there's lots of places you can start, but I personally use and have long recommended the Headspace app. It's one of the leading apps, very widely used, and for good reason. It's a really fantastic resource, tons of great content, really, really well made. I learned to meditate originally using their outstanding basics course, and I now aim to do their daily meditation most days. As I mentioned in the introduction, that's something I really try and do because I do feel the benefits. Here at Exam Study Expert, we're privileged to be a Headspace partner. So if you sign up via the link in the show notes, we will earn a small referral fee, which goes towards the costs of making and hosting the podcast for you all. I think, unfortunately, we only earn the referral if you sign up, if you're based in the United States for some reason. But I appreciate that nonetheless. So particularly encourage that if you're based in the US. I also wanted to close by thanking our new VIP supporters on Patreon this week, Ruth and Ellie, and also to note that to complement today's episode, I have added a deep rest practice recorded specifically for the Exam Study Expert community by Yoga Nidra teacher Camilla Walker. So that's a new resource heading to the VIP supporters club on Patreon this week. Just a little bit of a quick kind of commentary about that, because I think it's a really nice resource that we're adding there. If you are already familiar with deep rest or yoga nidra, this is you'll kind of know about the practice and hopefully be a fan of it. This practice was created especially with scholars in mind, and Camilla is not only a yoga nidra teacher but also has a long history of being a scholar herself, and she's done a really nice job of kind of creating this practice to help you release some of the worries that often come with pursuing academic goals specifically. And if you're not familiar with kind of what I'm describing, then to give you just some impression of what this is, with deep rest, it's basically a practice where you get yourself comfy on a bed or on the floor for half an hour or so, and Camilla will guide you through an exercise to help you lay down your burdens and enter this very calm, intensely rejuvenating state. So you might find this practice perfect as a little wind down the night before a big test or exam, or just use it on a regular night when your head is a little bit spinning after another long day of work, and you want to transition into kind of rest and ultimately sleep mode. The whole practice is yours to enjoy on demand as many times as you'd like as a member of our VIP supporters club on Patreon, and now joins a growing library of seriously useful resources to help you study smarter and thrive on your academic journey. Check out the club and join today at examstudyexpert.com/VIP. That's examstudyexpert.com/VIP. And just a little preview of what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. I'm conscious we've gone pretty heavy on preparing for exams and doing your kind of hardcore test-based learning in recent weeks with the Flashcard Mastery course. Very detailed, and I've been getting some really good feedback from people that listened to that. I know there's not everybody that listens is preparing for exams, or if even if you are, that's only kind of part of what you need to do. So I'm kind of conscious I want to kind of balance things out a little bit and cater for people that for whom exams are not quite so important, or maybe not at all important as part of your academic journey. And so over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a couple of episodes that are more focused on kind of other kinds of academic goals. So next week we'll be talking about how to finish your dissertation. So although this is quite dissertation focused, that's the sort of big writing projects we often do at university level, that applies to kind of any long form bit of academic writing. You may be doing kind of big essays at high school, for example, where we often have that tendency to procrastinate and put it off. My guest next week does a fantastic job of kind of breaking down the reasons why we procrastinate on some of those tasks and what we can do about it. She's really, really insightful. Highly recommend tuning in for that. If you ever struggle with procrastination on academic pursuits of any kind. And then the week following that, we've got a very special guest joining us once again, who I think may be familiar to some long-standing listeners. And we're doing a deep dive into how to do academic writing really well. Particularly this is relevant at university level. How to go about the kind of outlining, the reading, the kind of literature review, ultimately structuring, putting your final essay or dissertation or even a thesis together. Some really, really interesting insights in that, including a whole bunch of things that kind of I wish I'd known when I was taking my undergraduate studies that would have made a really big difference when I was taking on my kind of week essays or my kind of major dissertation projects. So actually kind of how to go about the nuts and bolts of getting academic writing done and what good looks like and how to avoid some of the common traps and pitfalls. So a couple of really nice episodes hopefully coming up for you over the next couple of weeks. I do hope you'll be able to join us for those. For now, I just wanted to wish you every success as always with your studies. It's been great to have your company today. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you again soon.